So how we make those changes in our thought patterns in building new neural pathways that will serve us better is something that in the positive intelligence world is called a PQ rep, or it's a self-command muscle. And I do really want you to think about it as a muscle. If you're familiar with the concept of strengthening your muscles, and you know that you might spend some time doing some work to strengthen your muscles. Maybe it's push-ups, maybe you go to the gym. You could be doing lots of things to strengthen those muscles. If you go for a long time and you don't do anything to keep your muscles in the same capacity as you had at one time in your life, then those muscles are going to get really weak, right? They're not going to be able to do and perform the way they want. So this is where we're going to create some habits and routines for you on how do you create that self-command muscle so that when those negative thought patterns start to show up, i.e. those saboteurs start showing up to sabotage your day, how are you going to be able to change that mindset into something positive? I'm going to give you lots of frames of references, both from positiveintelligence.com and maybe even a couple other alternative suggestions on what that new positive mindset might be and the different strategies you might employ to pivot and go to something else. But you first have to intercept it. You first have to notice the pain, intercept it, and be able to move to the sage muscle, as they're referring to it here. And so to really boost your ability to do that, we have something called PQ reps. And PQ reps are pretty simple. They are exercises that you can do in really short time frames throughout the day to help improve your ability to have that self-command muscle. It's really about engaging your senses to get present to this moment. Some of you may have been introduced to meditation or mindfulness in the past, and some of this is going to sound very similar to mindfulness, and in essence, it really is. But what I've often heard from individuals who have practiced mindfulness or meditation, and they've not always had the success that they were looking for, I notice what often is a pattern for them is that they will practice 5 or 10 minutes of mindfulness, maybe every morning, or maybe they do a big mindfulness meditation session every weekend, one night a week, but they don't do anything throughout the day. They haven't integrated mindfulness into their thought pattern throughout the day to get present. And that's really the missed opportunity. And so that's good. If you already have a mindfulness practice, if you already have a meditation practice, that's awesome. Your PQ assessment is probably much higher than the average because you have that practice, particularly if it's integrated into your day. But if it's not, or you're noticing that there's still some opportunity to improve, this is your opportunity to pay close attention and see how can you leverage PQ reps to increase that self-command muscle. So first off, what is a PQ rep? Well, it's pretty simple. 3, 2, 1 seconds. You just did a PQ rep. By focusing purely on what was on the screen and paying only attention to that in that 3 seconds time frame, you've done a PQ rep. There was an engaging of your sound, of your hearing and paying attention to sound. There was engaging of visualization and only paying attention to what you were seeing on the screen. That is a way of engaging your senses to stay fully present. During that 3 seconds, my guess is you weren't thinking about your to-do list. You weren't thinking about how you weren't good enough. You weren't thinking about how overwhelmed you were. You weren't thinking about how you were angry at one person or another. You were engaged for those 3 seconds on what you were seeing and what you were hearing. That's one PQ rep. And our goal is to keep doing that in lots of different ways. So let's think about different ways that we can do that. And I'm going to tell you specifically how many PQ reps you want to try to get in a given day. But let's just keep it simple right now. You're just trying to find as many moments in the day where you can pause for 3 seconds and be really focused on the present moment using your senses. So the first senses we're going to focus on is actually just the feeling of touch and sensation of different parts of our body. And I love actually thinking about toes and how that's something we can do anywhere, right? Because often people say, oh, I can't practice mindfulness or meditation easily. You know, if I were to tell you to breathe, you would say, oh, I'm going to feel kind of goofy doing that in front of other people. You can imagine lifting up your toes and putting them down one by one, and no one has to know that you're doing it. You could be sitting in a meeting. You could be standing at a crosswalk. You could just be standing as you see this lovely picture of someone. I believe it's going to be a dad. Those toes could be a mom as well, now that I look at them closer. And you're just standing there with your child and imagining lifting your toes up and then putting them back down. Just concentrating on that act of moving your toes is getting present to the moment. And it'll take far longer than 3 seconds to actually lift your toes up and try to move each toe down or up, down or up. So that's something you could do first thing in the morning. You could do it at any time in the day while you're in a meeting and in all kinds of places. We can also leverage the sensation of touch with our hands. One really simple one is just putting your fingertips together, and you can just take 2 fingers, such as what you see here on the left part of the screen, or you could take both your hands palm facing each other and press hard enough to where you can actually feel the ridges in your fingertips, those really unique ridges that make up your fingerprint. Try it right now. Just try pressing them together so hard that you can actually feel the ridges against each other, and maybe even rub it just ever so slightly so you can feel it. Another sensation of touch that you could focus on is when you're washing your hands. Can you imagine the sensation of your hands going back and forth, of the water going over your hands, of the soap and the suds, and how that feels? Just while you're washing your hands, take all other thoughts out in that moment and just put your concentration on washing your hands. Or even more simple, can you just caress your hands and notice whatever you notice as you're caressing your hands, whether you're noticing that there's softness, whether you're noticing the ridges of your knuckles, whether you're noticing a new freckle. Just pay attention and notice and feel, right? And if you're finding a hard time really getting connected to the feeling, close your eyes and just using just the feeling of touch by removing your eyes from the equation, and just see what you can feel for however many seconds you can do it. So that's engaging our sense of touch. Now there's our lovely sense of smell. And I love the smell of lavender. And if you can have lavender close by, whether that's essential oil, or you happen to be fortunate enough to have a garden of lavender, such as you see here, or you can just visualize and imagine the smell of lavender, or whatever is your favorite scent. If you can have that close by and handy to be able to smell it, could be a candle that has that smell, or it could be coffee. Like, I know many of us, whether we like to drink coffee or not, we often really love the smell of coffee. It creates aliveness in it. So it's how can you engage your sense of smell? You might think about how you might engage your sense of smell in thinking of food, but you also might think about how you could engage your sense of taste, whether that be the taste of a sweet, juicy peach, or a nice, ripe, sour lemon, or a sweet, decadent donut. What could you pleasure yourself with the idea of taste? Maybe you have a lovely candy that you like to suck on because it has that reminder of that taste of lemon or sweet or strawberry. Or you just take advantage of while you're having your breakfast or your lunch or your dinner, and you just pause for 30 seconds, a minute, as long as you can, and close your eyes and really savor what you're eating. It could be a boring turkey sandwich. What can you notice that makes that turkey sandwich so amazing? A piece of bacon, a salad, fruit. Doesn't matter what it is you're eating. Can you just really pay attention to all of your taste buds as they're sinking in those tastes? It could also just be taking a breath, just pausing, closing your eyes, breathing in. You could be imagining that air as it's going through your nostrils and down into your lungs and how it's feeding your body. Imagining the air as you're breathing in and the oxygen as it's going all the way down, maybe all the way down to your toes, but it's just filling up your lungs, it's filling up your abdomen. One of the phrases that I learned from, I believe it was Glennon Doyle in one of her conversations that she had on a podcast, she had used this phrase to teach her children how to just pause and take a breath. And it was smell the roses, blow out the candle. And sometimes that phrase, that reminder of, can I smell the roses? And you can actually visualize in that moment, I'm going to take a deep breath as if I was imagining I'm smelling roses. And then can I imagine I'm going to blow out the candle? And just that visualization of that phrase can create that space to remind you, I just need to take a couple of breaths right now. I just need to pause and take a few breaths to smell the roses and blow out the candles. We can also take advantage of our sight, our vision. And a clever thing to do sometimes is maybe just to cover up one eye and see what you notice different when you just have one eye covered. Look around the room, look around the space, and then cover up the other eye and see what you notice different when you switch eyes and only use and focus on your vision. Looking up at the sky occasionally and looking around you, wherever that might be. It could just be looking out your window of your garden, of your apartment building, just taking a moment and really just noticing what am I seeing with my eyes? Can I notice something different that I haven't seen before? And then, of course, there's the sense of sound. If we close our eyes, can we concentrate on all the sounds that are available to us right now? Picking up the frequencies of things as far away as maybe even a bumblebee that's buzzing around on a flower. How can you use your sense of hearing to really pause and get connected to the present moment and all the sounds that are available to you? And remember, we're talking about 3 seconds. 3 seconds equals 1 PQ rep. And your goal is to get 100 PQ reps a day. By doing 100 PQ reps a day, you're in essence building that muscle, that self-command muscle, so that when those negative thought patterns come in, when those saboteurs come around to sabotage your moment, you have the muscle, you have the capability that you've been building, that you've been practicing to interrupt that thought pattern, to change it and move it to a different direction. Now, we're going to spend more time in another session to really focus on what does that mean to move it to another direction. The first activity, the first habit you need to build is just interrupting that thought pattern, is noticing, again, that your hand is on the stove and there's something going on there. That's the interruption versus just staying there and continuing to experience the pain, the cost of that saboteur voice that keeps coming up. So what might a sample day look like? And this is where it's really important and different from what you might have considered as a regular meditation practice. This is about integrating mindfulness throughout your day, but doing it in really, really micro moments. Finding places in your existing routine that you can insert a PQ rep. So here's just a couple of examples that I'll talk you through. The first being the first 30 seconds of your day. When you wake up and you're lying there and you immediately start to feel just kind of awake, just enough to where your brain is sensing that, okay, it's morning, it's time to start to get up. Can you take those first 30 seconds or longer and just start getting connected to your body? And one simple activity could be just starting from your toes, just squeezing your toes and your ankles and your feet, and then squeezing up through to your calves and your shins and then your knees, then squeezing your thighs and hamstrings, and continuing to just sort of squeeze and create tension up through all your body and then releasing. And you can do it lots of ways. You can squeeze your toes and then you can release them. You could squeeze and tighten up your calves and your shin and then you could release them. You could squeeze your fingers and your hands and your arms and then release them. You could turn that into quite a long practice, but the idea is not necessarily to make it this super long practice. It's actually to make it really brief and find whatever you can in that moment to just get really connected to your body and not immediately go into what are all the things I need to do and am I going to work out and is this going to happen? Just get connected to the present moment and connected to physical touch, physical feeling. Another great, simple, easy way to get 10 PQ reps in is if you're a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, or if you have some time in the day where you like to have coffee. Most people like to have it first in the morning. Most people have that moment where they're actually, the coffee is brewing. It's doing something. You start to smell the coffee. While it's brewing, can you take just 30 seconds and just start to pick up the smells of that coffee? Or maybe even just look out your window and use it as a visualization moment where you're just, again, taking 30 seconds and using your eyes to see what am I seeing different today that I haven't noticed before. Now, if you happen to be a coffee drinker that drinks multiple cups of coffee a day, that's great. You can make this a part of your normal routine where every time you go to have a coffee or a tea, or even just a glass of water, that you integrate a habit, a routine where you're doing 30 seconds of something. And if it can't be 30 seconds, make it 10. You can multiply this PQ rep activity for as many times in the day that you integrate that into your routine. Most of us all go to the bathroom many times a day. So here's another great opportunity where, again, you can have multiple applications of 5 PQ reps, 10 PQ reps, doesn't really matter, doing whatever you want to do. I particularly like to wiggle my toes, right? So while I'm using the bathroom, I just wiggle my toes a little bit. And again, it just gets me connected to that sensation of physical touch. We also can take moments in the day where we're eating, whether that's breakfast, whether that's lunch, dinner, snacks, doesn't matter. You take one of those moments a day where you're eating and you leverage 1 minute of silent eating. With your eyes closed is more effective, paying really close attention to all of the taste as you're eating. You might choose to do this multiple times a day. And again, you'll get great value out of it. First 30 seconds of a meeting, where many of us are on Zoom meetings, but whether it's an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting, can you just take that first 30 seconds and maybe just really pay attention to each person that's in the room, that's there? What's different about them today? What can you notice that you've never noticed about them before? What can you notice about the room that you're in that you've never noticed before? You could simply also just use that moment to just take a few breaths and just get really connected to your breath, noticing temperature of your breath as you're breathing in, or the temperature of your breath as you're breathing out. Or you can use that great fingertip exercise where you're just placing your fingertips together and you're really feeling the ridges of your fingertips. These are all things you can do that no one will know that you're doing them, but it becomes a habit, a routine as you have meetings. If you're a person who has meetings multiple times a day, a great opportunity to regularly get in 10 PQ reps for each one of those meetings. And then, of course, there's the old washing your hands, noticing the feeling of the water on the skin, the soap, all of that. So again, however many times you wash your hands, whether that's right after the bathroom, before you're going to eat, whatever it is you might have in your day, can you integrate just 30 seconds while you're washing your hands to really pay attention? Can you integrate 10 seconds to just pay attention? Every time you practice a PQ rep, if only for 3 seconds, you're increasing your self-command muscle. You're increasing your opportunity to be able to interrupt those saboteur thoughts. And the ideal is to integrate this throughout your day with other habits and routines that you already have. This is not adding anything new to your day. This is not setting aside 15 minutes to go do a meditation session. This is about integrating these small little micro moments throughout your day. Now, this sample habit integration moment is a little bit more detail. This has been provided as a resource in your session. So take a look at it in your success work area and your resources as something that you're going to work on. And my challenge to you is for the next 21 days, see how you can shoot to try to get that 100 PQ reps every day. And if you only get 20 reps the first day, that's okay. The next day, try to get a little bit more and a little bit more. with the overall goal of getting 100 PQ reps a day. Now, if you get 98, that's not a big deal. If you do 150, great. That's awesome. It's really about trying to get as close as you can to the 100 or higher. The more you do the PQ reps, the more you're increasing your self-command capability.